Hello and welcome to video number 25 of Embolden's video tutorial project. This will be the final video where we're sort of talking about the basics of content editing. We've gone over the rad editor component, which is this WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get editor, the sort of word processor emulating component of your website. And after this, we'll move on and start talking about some of the core functions of DNN, like adding pages, adding modules, that sort of thing. And we'll talk about some of the other modules available to you. But this essentially is saying if you're working in the content manager module, which is what you'll be doing most of the time, that's your basic text, HTML, whatever editing tool. You're going to open it up. You'll be in the rad editor. You'll add your content or edit your content. You'll want to make your changes. What do you do at the end of that when you're ready to save? So there's a few things. We're basically talking about this stuff down here. In theory, and this is only with the content manager module, a few other modules have similar functionality to this, but you can set publish and expiration dates for individual drafts of content. This gets really tricky and we don't recommend it because it's just too prone to human error. You can forget that you set something to publish at a certain time, or you can forget that you set something to expire, and then it expires and you don't have anything to show after it expires. So you have to be careful with this if you're going to use it. But essentially, if I made a bunch of changes now, and it's Friday, it's the end of the day, and I want these things to go live Monday morning, but I don't want to have to worry about rushing in here Monday morning to make them live, or possibly forgetting, or what if I get a flat tire, or whatever, I can just save these changes, but set a publish date, which I can either click on this calendar, or I can just type it in here to the publish date thing. Because of course, since I'm recording this, the calendar's taking a while to load. But I could just say, okay, it's the 27th now. I want this to go live on April 30th, and click that, and it will go live at 12:01 a.m. on April 30th. So we could set a publish date if we wanted to. I'm actually going to erase that. We can save as a draft. We can update, which saves it and makes it live. So saving it as a draft saves it, but nobody can see it yet. And in fact, if we save as a draft and go back to the page, we won't even see any changes that we made. We have to go into the version manager to see the different drafts. We can update. This is mostly what you're going to want to do. Update, that saves it, makes it live, the whole world can see it. We can cancel. We're going to lose all the changes we made. There's no auto save in this. This is not like working with a desktop Office suite or word processor like Microsoft Word. So as you're going along, it's not automatically saving every 5 or 10 minutes. So if you cancel out, you lose all the changes you made. And then preview, you're not generally going to need to do because we usually code the editor, unless you're on a really, really, really old version. We usually code it so the styles actually show up in here. If we did not do that extra coding for you, what you would see was your H1s, your headlines here, would just look like default HTML H1s, your paragraphs and things like that. So nothing would have the appropriate styling, and then you would click preview, and what preview will do is not a full in-page preview like you would be expecting. It's just going to show you your text up here, and then it's going to kind of run it across the thing down here. And we can see it's too wide for the column it's in and that sort of thing. When we save it, it's not going to be this wide. It's just this is how the preview works. It takes the entire content here and just kind of runs it all the way over here. If you're looking for an in-page preview where you click preview and it actually opens up a whole new window with the content in there, but the actual regular page, if you are a regular user, hasn't changed, you're just basically seeing a dummied up version of the page. That is not available in the version of DNN that we are using here, which is DNN 4.9. DNN 6, which we are starting to roll out, does have that as an option, where there would be preview and then a separate link that says, I believe, view, and you click view, and that's going to open up a whole new page with your edited content in that page in the appropriate context. So basically down here you have save as draft, update, cancel, and preview. If you click update, that's going to save it and make it live. That's generally what you want to do. If you hit save as draft, as I mentioned, that'll save it, but it will be stored somewhere that you then have to go get to, and we're going to go have a whole separate video about that later. One thing to know about saving, there is a timeout feature in DNN, which basically means if you are logged in for a certain amount of time, let's say an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it depends on what it's set at for your website. By default, it's usually set fairly low, like half an hour or so. And this is a security feature. If you are logged in for a certain amount of time and haven't had any activity, the system will log you out. It's the same thing with most banking systems have this and that sort of thing. You know, if you've walked away, they don't want somebody else to be able to sit down at your computer and go in and make a bunch of changes to your website. For most of you, you probably don't need that feature because you work in an office and you don't have to worry about your colleagues coming into your office and changing the organization's website on you. But it's just a security feature that's built into the system. We can adjust the timeout for you if you like, but I do not believe there is an option to not have a timeout. So what I usually do when I am editing things on here, I actually do this whenever I'm editing anything. If I'm sending mail from my Gmail, if I'm on a message forum, if I'm leaving a comment on a blog, if I've spent more than a minute or two typing it before I hit submit, I always select all, Control A, copy. I've now copied this content to the clipboard of my computer. So if anything goes wrong when I'm submitting it, yes, I have to log back in, I have to go back in and paste it in, but at least I haven't lost half an hour or an hour's worth of work. So I usually do that. You should definitely do that if you're the type of person that tends to, as you're working, be working on a bunch of different things at once or get called away from your desk for a meeting and then come back. Most likely you'll run into a timeout issue. So getting used to that will help you avoid some pretty big headaches. Once we're ready, we click update and it's going to save our content and it's going to show that as the content of that page. This big red border around here, this is because I have hidden this page so it won't show on our demo site. You would generally not be seeing something that looks like this. What you may be thinking as I talk about timeout, this is a very common reaction. People think, aha, I know what I'll do. I will save every 5 minutes or every 10 minutes. Even though there's no autosave feature, if I just save as draft every 10 minutes, that will avoid me running into issues with timeout. We do not recommend that because there is this thing called the version manager that can save old copies of your work, which is great if you ever need to go back and say, I need to see what this looked like a couple weeks ago, or, you know, I made some changes I didn't want to make. I need to revert to an older version, but it only holds so many drafts. So it will generally hold up to 5 copies of the content of a module. If you're saving every 10 minutes, then you're very quickly going to fill that up. And so if at some point you say, oh, okay, I finished all these changes, I've saved a dozen times. If you want to go back to the way things were 2 weeks ago, you can't. You've long since purged the cache of the older content and filled it up with these saves that you're doing every 5 or 10 minutes. So generally, all you're going to do is click update at the bottom. But we do recommend copying to your clipboard before doing so. And if you do want your timeout raised, and you're an Embolden client, obviously, get in touch with Embolden and we can raise that for you to, you know, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is that you want. So that's it. That's basically the end of the stuff talking about the editing interface. Now you know enough to do basic content edits on your site. If your site has already been built for you and you just need to go in to edit some content that's there, you can do that. What we're going to start doing is doing some videos about how to add new pages to the site, how to add new modules to the page, and how to work with a lot of the other modules like slideshows and calendars and little pop-up things and tabs and accordions and all sorts of stuff like that. Thank you so much for watching so far, and we will see you in video number 26 when we talk about adding pages.